Welcome back in, Detroit Lions fans. Monday, Victory Monday. I'll tell you right now, my alarm for work goes off at about 4:15 in the morning. It's usually pretty tough. It's an early day. I know a lot of us do those kind of days. It's a little bit easier when that alarm goes off after you just got a big Detroit Lions win. So I'm riding high. I think that was a phenomenal win yesterday. I covered a lot of stuff in my post game recap I posted last night. If you guys want to check that one out, please do so. I also said in that show that there was some stuff that I wasn't going to talk about because I felt like it was negative. And all right, and I will not come on a game day recap where we just had a big win and talk about a lot of negativity unless it's rightfully deserved. And I didn't think that was the case yesterday. But like you guys always hear coaches say, and I'm a firm believer in this, there's no such thing as a perfect game, okay? Coaches say it all the time, we got stuff to clean up. And if you've ever played a sport, no matter how competitive, I know I played hockey, baseball, football, and I was always taught there's no such thing as a perfect game. You still got things you can work on, all right? Whether you missed scoring a goal or hitting a check, or maybe we're bad with running the bases or some penalties in football. You got stuff you can work on. Okay. So I think if you're like me and if you're like Brad Holmes, what a lot of people were looking at yesterday is how did this defense look without Aiden Hutchinson? Okay. And again, we got the win. I will never cry or be sad that a Detroit Lions team got a win. Okay. So let me just get that out there. But we're talking about how can we get better? How can we get better as a football team? Not having Aiden Hutchinson yesterday was very, 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 very evident on how much he's missed, in my opinion. Now, there's no panic. All right. I've done nothing but praise Aaron Glenn and the job he's done. In the years he's been here, he's had the deck stacked against him. He's always going to the table and he doesn't always have all the cards. There's a lot of guys that have been injured. We're talking right now, right off the rip. He's missing 3 pass rushers in Derek Barnes, Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport. And our defense still played pretty damn good yesterday. And I mean, really, really good. Can it get better? Yes. I think how this defense is set up, it's set up to play man coverage, which we do very well. Terrion Arnold's playing well. Carlton Davis is playing well. Don't even get me started on Brian Branch. Don't even get me started on Kirby Joseph. Love what those guys are doing. I just didn't love what I saw from the pass rush yesterday, okay? I saw some stats on the internet, the Twitter, if you will. 27 attempts where the Detroit Lions yesterday only rushed 4 players. We only got pressure 3 times, okay? We also had to blitz at a higher rate. And I think when you blitz at a higher rate, if you're one of the elite teams in the league, I know the Minnesota, I don't want to be mean. Well, if you have to blitz more, you're opening yourself up more for some holes. And we exposed some yesterday with how aggressive the Minnesota Vikings were. We were able to run the ball past those blitzes. Jahmyr Gibbs had a field day. I don't think that that's a recipe for success for the Detroit Lions. I think we saw it a little bit last year where we had to blitz more and we gave up more big plays. Now, again, our secondary is better than last year, so it's not a huge concern. But anytime Aaron Glenn is out there and he's coaching his ass off and he's without 3 playmakers and Derek Barnes, Davenport, and Hutchinson, like I said, it's not fair. And it's football. I get it. I don't like to use the word it's not fair because it's just the way the business works, okay? Injuries happen. I do think that the Detroit Lions need to go out and make a move, okay? I watched the New York Jets, who were at one point just a week ago 2-4. They went out and made a move to try to make their team better. The Lions are sitting 5-1. All right. I personally think they're the best team in the NFL. Maybe I'm eating a little too much of the home cooking, like I say, but I'm not buying into the Chiefs. I don't think they looked good. I think yesterday was a title for who's the best team in the NFL right now. Whoever won that game between Minnesota and Detroit was going to win that title, and the Detroit Lions won it. So I see other teams, and I know we're not the Jets. We're not in disarray like they are, but I do see just some other teams making moves. I saw the Buffalo Bills make some moves and acquiring Amari Cooper. Like I said, the Devontae Adams trade to the Jets. Like, teams are making moves to try to bolster their team. I think the Detroit Lions need to make some calls. Okay. Sam Darnold yesterday, just way, way, way too much time in the pocket. I could see him getting antsy because he felt a pass rush was coming, but it wasn't. Greg Olson kept saying it on the broadcast, and I couldn't have agreed more. There were some plays, I remember a handful, if not more, where Sam Darnold was just sitting back and he had all the time to get through his reads. And I talked about that in my pregame show where I was making some predictions. I said we have to find a way to put pressure on Sam, or he's going to carve us up. Now, he didn't exactly carve us up, but he does have a weapon in Justin Jefferson, who he was able to get the ball to because he had time. Okay, and I don't care what Justin Jefferson does. He can do those meaningless gritties where he scores a touchdown in a game. As long as my team's leaving with a win, I don't care. Gritty your ass all the way through Minnesota. It doesn't matter to me. We won the football game. But I'm saying I don't think that this is sustainable. I don't think that the next 11 games we can play defense like that where we're not getting pressure with just 4 and we're having to send more people. And I take into effect that the Minnesota Vikings do have, I don't know where to rate their offensive line, but it's damn good. They're probably in the top 10 if I had to guess. I know they got that big guy Darisaw, Bradbury. They got some dudes on their offensive line. They play good offensive line. They're right up there. They're not the Detroit Lions level, but they're in that next tier offensive line wise. So when we're talking trades, all right, guys, I know everyone wants Max Crosby. I know everyone wants a Myles Garrett, myself included. I said Myles Garrett was probably my number 1 option. I'm not off that. I'm staying on that island. I do think that the Browns should look at possibly making some moves, especially yesterday with Deshaun Watson getting hurt. And if you know me, I don't cheer for injuries. Even with all of the off the field issues that Deshaun Watson's had, I don't want to see injuries in football. It takes away from the level of competitiveness, and that's why we love to watch games. Okay, we're NFL fans because we like to see some competition. So I'm actually, very sad that Deshaun Watson. I'm not very sad. I mean, from a human being standpoint, I feel bad for the guy, but I think that kind of just sealed the fate for the Cleveland Browns. Like, it's time to sell. All right. Maybe wash your hands of this Deshaun Watson trade. It hasn't worked out while he was playing. Now he's done for at least this year and maybe a little bit into next year. We'll see how fast he heals. But Cleveland's not looking like they're in a position to win football games. How do you turn it around? If you have a GM like Brad Holmes, do the draft. That's exactly how it's done. So do I think Myles Garrett's an option? It's going to cost more. I know a lot of people are out there wanting Zadarius Smith. And again, this Max Crosby stuff, I know I've done a lot of trade episodes, especially the last 7-8 days. I haven't really dove into Max Crosby. I'm very aware of who he is. I'm very aware of everything he says. All right, I'm very active on Twitter. I see everything that's going on. I don't think that the Max Crosby situation would even be a hot topic for Detroit Lions fans if it weren't for I think it was like a year or 2 ago. He was on a podcast and was asked if you weren't playing for the Las Vegas Raiders, who would you like to be playing for? He said the Detroit Lions. I feel like from that moment on, there's been a false hope that the Detroit Lions will be able to get Max Crosby. And look, guys, I would love to have Max. I think he'd be the perfect replacement for Aiden Hutchinson for this year. And then thinking about the future going forward for the next 2 or 3 years, the two of them together with the secondary and our linebackers, our defense would be elite. And I don't like to use that word. But to acquire Max Crosby, I've seen some people out there who are willing to give up 3 first-round picks to get him. And I'm on record. I've said it. I'm very adamant about the thought process of the draft and where the Detroit Lions are now. We're stockpiling talent. We're so deep as a roster that even our draft picks are having a hard time getting on the field. And that's not a knock on our guys. That's not a knock on our rookies. It's just going to show how deep the Detroit Lions are, that we're drafting players and they're not getting on the field right away, unless your name's Terrion Arnold. Rakestraw primarily doing special teams. Wingo's getting some playing time. Vaki special teams, Mahogany and Manu projects. Okay, so we're drafting for the future. Could we afford to give up some picks that are essentially going to be second rounders for Max Crosby, and would it make a difference? Yes, but man, 3 draft picks makes me a little uncomfortable. 2 draft picks is uneasy for me. We're talking 3. We didn't even get 3 first-round draft picks for Matthew Stafford, and we're talking about the quarterback position, where a quarterback is involved with every single offensive play, from the most basic thing of the center quarterback exchange to progressing. There's value for the quarterbacks to get 3 first-rounders, and I get it. Max Crosby's a game wrecker. We're lost Aiden Hutchinson. I'm just telling you from my point of view and my perspective as a fan, I can't give up 3 first-rounders. I'd be okay with 1, and maybe sprinkle in some other little cherries on top, of future second, a future fifth, something like that, a package. I understand. But to say, hey, Vegas, here's 3 first rounders. Guys, that's a lot. And I get it. I want them to be the 32nd pick in the draft. I do. I want it. But there is no guarantee that just because you trade for Max Crosby, we win a Super Bowl. Now, if that's the case, and you can look me in the eyes and say, Steve Perkins, we trade for Max Crosby, 3 first-round picks, I guarantee you win a Super Bowl, different story, okay? I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but it's not a guarantee. Nothing in life is guaranteed besides death and taxes, okay? So let's look at the trade from a standpoint of both teams. Does it make sense for the Las Vegas Raiders to trade Max Crosby? I think yes. They're going through the same thing like I kind of just mentioned with Cleveland. They don't have a quarterback. They have some nice pieces. I like that Brock Bowers kid from Georgia. I really was kind of picturing him with the Detroit Lions and what our offense might look like, but I do like Brock Bowers. Defensively, I know they added Christian Wilkins. I don't know much about their secondary. They're a mess. The main thing is they don't have a quarterback. They just traded away Devontae Adams to the Jets. They don't really have a solid running game or an offensive line. So could they use 3 first-round picks? Absolutely. Again, any team that gets a GM in place, you can turn your organization around real fast. We are literally living proof of this. Okay, so does it make sense for the Vegas Raiders to trade Max Crosby? Yes. Does it make sense for the Detroit Lions? I think the answer is also yes. Obviously, lost Aiden Hutchinson. I just talked to you guys about some stats on our first game without Hutch. It didn't look good. We weren't able to get pressures. Even when we blitzed against Minnesota, they picked it up very well, and we weren't able to get pressures as often as I would like. So does it make sense for us? Yes. It's tough, guys. All right. And I'll tell you this, my point of view is a little different than you guys watching the show from the point of this, and hear me out. When the football season ends and I have to go heavy into the draft and I have to talk about draft picks and mock drafts and do all that stuff, it really kind of handcuffs your boy if we don't have 3 first-round picks for the next 3 years to come up with some content to talk about in the offseason. So I think it does hit me in that area a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, Max Crosby, if I had to guess 2 or 3 years from now, if with him and Aiden Hutchinson and our secondary and our offense being mostly secured and locked up, all of our guys mostly under contract, the odds of winning a Super Bowl with Max Crosby does increase. So I will say that. But again, there is no guarantee. Okay. If it were that simple, I think Brad Holmes would have done it already. Okay. I think he would have had that deal done before the Detroit Lions even returned home from Dallas last week. So it's tough, guys. And again, let me just end the show with this. I know we're talking about adding some players on defense. I don't want to take away from how great this defense has been. Just looking at the Minnesota game, they had 29 points. 7 of them came on a scoop and score, so that wasn't against the defense. And another 7 was on what I said was a bad call from Dan Campbell going forward on a punt, giving the Vikings a short field. 2 plays later, they score a touchdown. So he didn't really help the defense out there. So you can take 7 of those points. Essentially, they gave up 22. In my opinion, maybe that should be probably 10 points that we kind of spotted them. But again, that's not how it works. I understand. I just think that this defense is playing really well. It's just not very sustainable for the next 11 games and then going into the playoffs. If we can have a guy where we're in a position like we were yesterday and the Minnesota Vikings have less than a minute left and they have to throw the ball, I can throw out a Max Crosby and potentially end the game. He's my closer. It kind of makes you do wonder. Guys, again, there's a lot of things. My final opinion is we do need to add someone. How big of a splash? I'm not sure, but I do think Brad Holmes is going to make a move. Time's ticking. The trade deadline is quickly approaching. I know we got a little time. We got about like 3 weeks before the trade deadline's here. So we got some time. I think Brad's just doing his job. He's evaluating, seeing how the team looks, but I don't want to take away from what Aaron Glenn's done. Phenomenal job. Assistant coach of the year so far. He's the front runner. Enjoy him while you got him, because Aaron Glenn will be a head coach somewhere else next season, and it's going to be missed. Guys, thanks for watching. Stick around. Leave some comments. I appreciate it. Go Lions. 5-1 big game against the Titans this week, guys. I'll be back later with another show.